Team members will approve your app within 24 hours. Then you can start downloading the promotional tracks. Nerve DJ's MP3 pool, we have massive downloads. Or you can pick and choose which tracks you want. Just make sure you register at nervedjsmixtapes.com. That's NERVEDJSMIXTAPES.com. NerveDJsMixtapes.com and MP3 DJ pool. Register today and you'll be glad you did. NerveDJsMixtapes.com.
What's up, everybody? It's your sports guru here every Monday from 5 to 6 p.m. on WNRV 108.1. Catch me, Ball Talk with Brandy.
This is WNRV 108.1.
From behind the backboard. What a shot.
An incredible shot by LeBron James.
Here comes Allen.
Think they on the radio, the way they all talk. As long as the show steady on, I can never fall off. They tune in too heavy though, I can never call off. Take the shot on every go, sorry I'm a ball hog. This that ball talk, this that ball talk, this that ball talk, this that ball talk, yeah. This that ball talk, this that ball talk, this that ball talk, this that ball talk, yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. Happy Monday. If you guys haven't tuned into the past shows, you guys can catch up on Mixcloud or my Instagram at Ball Talk with Brandy or Brandy Marie X. And also remember, all the songs you guys are going to hear during break is from current or former athletes. You guys are going to hear some songs by Le'Veon Bell, Flau'jae, who just won her championship with LSU, Damian Lillard, Amon Shumpert, Deion Sanders, Chad Thomas, Lonzo Ball, and a whole lot more, because a lot of these athletes have also dipped into the music side. But this past week in the sports world, there's been a lot going on, as there always is. Last week during the show, there was a lot of breaking news right before the show and during. So hopefully we don't have that this week, but you never know because the sports world is crazy. But this past week was the NFL draft, and it also included some trades and signings of current players. And then the MLB season is just about a month in now. The NBA playoffs have started round 2, and it's May, which means the WNBA season is going to be starting this month. Today, we're going to start looking at the women with the WNBA to shine some light on them, since their season is right around the corner. Their season will start on May 19th, so some important dates for them. Their training camp did start yesterday, April 30th, and then on May 5th, the preseason games will start, and those preseason games will go until May 15th. And then on May 18th is the day that they will have to have their final roster cut down. The roster cut down will be to 12 players, and they will have to do that by 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then the next day after that, on the 19th, is there with the women's side of basketball, as a lot of people aren't, because, you know, most people do follow the men's. But I'm going to give you guys some more insight this whole season into the women's and more of what the WNBA is like and how it compares to the NBA for men's, because there are a lot of differences. So currently the women's league does only have 12 teams in their league, and their season does consist of 40 games. Also, the league just signed a multi-year agreement to televise games on Friday nights during the regular season on ION. ION is a channel that is pretty much on every TV household, and all major and connected TV services have it. In 2022, the network was the number 11th most watched TV network, so it's definitely a good look for these WNBA games to be on their network. Their partner Scripps said, "The WNBA Friday Night Spotlight on ION brings women's professional basketball the broadest possible reach with the consistency that fans, players, teams in the league deserve. They are fully committed to growing the number of women's basketball fans who value the athleticism, professionalism, and excitement that the WNBA brings into their living rooms. Also, the WNBA is going to be the first sports property to air on their network, so that will implement an extensive promotional effort for them to drive awareness and for people to tune in on Fridays for their franchises. In 2020, the league also did sign a groundbreaking 8-year CBA that basically changes the course for women's basketball and women's sports overall. It does have a focus on increased player compensation, improvements to player experiments, and expand their career development opportunities and resources that are specifically tailored to the female athlete. You know, college athletes are allowed to have the NIL deals now, and I think, you know, a lot of brands should target and work with women athletes. You know, you see a lot of makeup and hair brands that work with singers and actresses, but I think brands like that should also be, you know, tuning into these women athletes, because you see a lot of them with full makeup, full hair. So I think, you know, these makeup brands, that would be a great deal for them. But it was Candace Parker's birthday a couple weeks ago, and she is, you know, one of the top WNBA stars. She is also the only WNBA player to win Rookie of the Year and MVP in a season. She's also won Defensive Player of the Year. She's also a 2-time champion and 2-time MVP. She's also a 7-time first team and 7-time All-Star. She also was the first woman to get on the NBA 2K cover. And then she also owns the Angel City FC. And she also has deals with brands like Adidas, Gatorade, Capital One, and so much more. And then you guys also see her on TV as an analyst. She's an analyst on NBA TV and NBA on TNT. So definitely shout out to Candace Parker. She's definitely made changes for women that are athletes and women on the broadcasting side. But looking ahead at the opening weekend games on May 19th, the first game will be the Phoenix Mercury and the Los Angeles Sparks. In that game, it will be Brittany Griner's return to basketball. She is an 8-time All-Star and 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. She will be with her teammate Diana Taurasi, who is the league's career scoring leader. She's also a 3-time champion entering her 19th season. That game will be Friday, May 19th, and it will actually be airing on ESPN and streaming on ESPN Plus at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. That being on ESPN is also marking the first time that a WNBA game will be available on the ESPN streaming service. Also opening weekend, the Atlanta Dream will be facing the Dallas Wings. And then the former champs, the Las Vegas Aces, are going to be playing the Seattle Storm. And then the Chicago Sky will be playing the Los Angeles Sparks. So definitely tune in on the 19th to start the season. And like I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot of great games to kick off the season. Looking at some other things, though, ahead of the new season, the champions Las Vegas Aces have moved into their brand new facility, which is the first ever facility that was built solely for a WNBA team. If you guys haven't seen the pictures or the videos of their facilities, you guys definitely want to go on Google or social media, because the pictures of this facility look so good. Probably one of the best facilities I have seen. So it does have 2 full courts, a locker room. They also have a team shop, a weight room, cold and hot plunge pools, a hydro works. They have a sauna, a cryo chamber, a nutrition bar, and a film room. Also, the head coach of the Aces is Becky Hammon. She is also going to be entered into Hall of Fame this year. It's well deserved for her. But she did win the championship with them last season. And the Toronto Raptors are actually looking for a head coach, and they did receive permission to interview her for their head coaching position. Becky was asked in an interview how she keeps her team focused on the upcoming season. And she did say, "I'm not commenting on Toronto. This is all about the Aces, and I won't take one moment away from these women to talk about them boys." So she also did win WNBA Coach of the Year this past season. And then she did already spend 8 seasons in the NBA as she was a San Antonio Spurs assistant. And also, here is what the Hall of Famer Paul Gasol had to say about her coaching ability. He said, "I've been in the league for 17 years. I won 2 championships. I played with some of the best players of this generation, and I played under 2 of the sharpest minds in the history of sports with Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich. And I'm telling you, Becky Hammon, I'm not saying she can coach pretty well. I'm not saying she can coach enough to get by. I'm not saying she can coach almost at the level of the NBA's male coaches. I'm saying Becky Hammon can coach NBA basketball, period." Now, I don't know by her comment if she'll want to make the move back to the NBA to be a head coach, but you never know. And honestly, I would love to see her head coach of the Toronto Raptors. And, that would definitely go down in history of having a woman head coach in the NBA. Also, Brittany Griner, like I said, who'll be back to play this season, she discussed in a press conference about going overseas. And she did say that she's never going overseas to play again unless it would be for her representing her country at the Olympics. And she also did discuss the pay gap that leads the WNBA players to go overseas in the off season in the first place. So keep in mind, May 1st, as training camp started April 30th yesterday. May 1st, today is the day that players have to report to their teams. And if the players don't, then they would be fined and suspended for the whole season. The WNBA does not play around over there. So definitely all the players should be reporting or they will miss out this whole season. Some other things that can be different in the WNBA compared to the NBA is obviously, some of these players will get pregnant and start families. So one of the Chicago Sky's forwards, Ruthie Hubbard, she recently had her son, and she did do a film talking about her navigating her journey and the birth of her son, and also going through the process, wondering if the team would cut her or if she would be able to keep her job. You guys can go check out that film on YouTube. It's on Together's YouTube page, but it's spelled TOGETHXR. That's all I have on the WNBA right now. I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about those players who did get cut to start the season. And, they do have to make those roster cuts very soon. When I come back, I'm going to take a break, but when I come back, we're going to talk some NFL as the draft was recently. This is Ball Talk. I'll be right back.
This is WNRV 108.1.
Oh, yeah. I got you. You just gotta change your point of view and how you look at it. Yeah. That's how I look at it. Yeah. Keep that too. Look. Yeah. You just gotta change your point of view and how you look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I can look at it. And I'm really full of some trauma, I just look happy. And since that day I made a promise, I won't look back. I just had to change my point of view and how I look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I can look at it. And I'm really full of some trauma, I just look happy. And since that day I made a promise, I won't look back. Keep fighting when you low, cause everybody got a demon. I don't ever judge a soul, cause everybody got a reason. One day you gon' be chose, cause everybody got a season. The world is turning cold, like everybody so anemic. I was depressed all by myself, ain't had no way to go. Knew I just had to keep on pushing slow like radio. They recognize me by my voice, I'm on the radio. Think they finna sink the boat, no I can't say no more, can't play no more. Crazy how them tables turn, man, I just look at it. When they call my phone asking for money, I don't look at it. And my mama really superwoman, now that I look at it. I remember we ain't had no money, now I look past it. You just gotta change your point of view and how you look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I can look at it. And I'm really full of some trauma, I just look happy. And since that day I made a promise, I won't look back. I just had to change my point of view and how I look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I can look at it. And I'm really full of some trauma, I just look happy. And since that day I made a promise, I won't look back. And I made a promise I will win, so I'm still grinding. I hope you looking down at me, I hope you still smiling. I'ma give my mama everything because she still riding. Know that we gon' catch them when they see us, so they still hiding. They don't know I play for keeps. I just wrote a a J for ski. Still gon' rep that H to V. In the hood, it's safe to me. If I fall, who's saving me? I just know how to hater be. On the low, they afraid of me. Always afraid what they can't see. Ain't got no time for no distraction. Got a family to feed. Who gon' take care of my brother? Something happened to me. And you gotta cut a check. I'm never rapping for free. They used to say I couldn't do it. Now they clapping for me. You just gotta change your point of view and how you look at it. I see my grandma in that casket. I can look at it. And I'm really full of some trauma. I just look at it. And since that day I made a promise I won't look back. I just had to change my point of view and how I look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I could look at it. And I'm really full of some trauma, I just look at it. And since that day I made a promise I won't look back. And I just look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I could look at it. I could look at it. I see my grandma in that casket. No, I could look. You gotta change your point of view and how you look at it. I see my grandma in that casket, I could look at it.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Ebony with an I, and the ball's in her court now. It's my girl Brandy on Mondays from 5 to 6 with her new show, Ball Talk. Check it out.
I got that stick on, I know. Lost a couple homies to the, okay, I said that. Looking on me like they better go put that bed back. Like, no, it ain't no low fish, they can catch me with that bread at. 100,000 cool, but that ain't really where my head at. I need 3, I need 4, think I need a whole lot. New generation files, we still be passing around them old. We got kicked up out that condo, we was smoking out the whole spot. I'm tryna duck my past, I keep on calling up my old thoughts. Yeah. I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crew with me. Wishing for the best, that's the hope in me. I be floating good, I ain't even bring a boat with me. They say I'm a star, oh I guess they see the goat in me. Motivate my people and motivate my section, yeah. I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crib.
They made me, little city baby, got a mouth full of goals with the dukes like Daisy. If I grew up on that trick, I don't really care for Jay-Z. Won't let Nat and play me scrap like the Navy. My niggas gon' let me hurt, I feel like Jalen. To get my niggas back, it ain't nothing I won't trade. Wanna let me in the door, you know I had to sneak my way in. And I brought the bros with me like the way. Like 2-3 drinks to start my day, but ain't no telling how my day. I like girls, tell her pull up with a gay friend. Good weed and some lit, baby, welcome to my playpen. Grew up on that Jeezy, that's that thug motivation.
I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crib.
Okay, I ain't had no motivation, cause the ones that supposed to motivate was really hate. It's changed, got the big homie looking at the baby. Put it in the face and clean them up, don't need no maybes. Hard night life when my brother pop a chick. Just when he started smoking, we was rolling switches. Real city baby, stepping like the major. Front line, I tell her what up on the case. Really tryna motivate, really good in my hood, I'm by the stove today. Yeah, really wanna float, I'm on a boat today. Yeah, good eyesight, I got the scope today.
I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crib.
Welcome back to Ball Talk with Brandy. Right before the break, I was talking about the WNBA and their season that's going to be quickly approaching. But now we're going to move over to the NFL draft, as the draft was recently. So we're going to talk about other trades and signings that happened around the league with current players as well. But to start, some of the historic things about the NFL draft this year is that there were 40 plus trades during the draft, which is an all-time record for draft day deals. Also, there were 12 quarterbacks taken in the first 5 rounds, which is also the most in the first 5 rounds of the draft in draft history ever. So the draft was in Kansas City, Missouri this year with the former champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was right outside of Union Station. The draft did have 312,000 people in attendance, along with 54 million viewers during the 3-day event, which is the most in attendance at a draft in the past few years, dating back to 2019, when the draft was in Nashville and they had 600,000 people attend. So, there are 7 rounds of the draft, but I'm just going to highlight some of the top picks in the draft this year and other surprises that happened along the way. So to start, the Carolina Panthers did have that number 1 pick when they did do the trade with the Chicago Bears about a month or 2 ago. So Carolina did select Bryce Young, the QB from Alabama. Then the second pick was the Houston Texans, and they did choose my fellow Buckeye cornerback from Ohio State, CJ Stroud. The third pick in the draft was a surprise, as the Houston Texans did do a trade with the Arizona Cardinals during the draft, who they originally had the 3rd pick in the draft. So Houston did do the trade, and with their 3rd pick, they selected Will Anderson Jr. to help them out on their defense, a linebacker from Alabama. Moving over to the 4th pick, where a lot of people didn't know at what position the Indianapolis Colts would be choosing, but some people did suspect it could be a QB, as they did let Matt Ryan go and haven't gotten anyone since. So they did go that path, as they selected quarterback from Florida, Anthony Richardson, and a lot of people spoke about him after seeing him at the Combine, saying he was the 3rd best QB following Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Then the 5th pick in the draft was the Seattle Seahawks. They got that from their trade with the Denver Broncos when Russell Wilson went to Denver. They also decided to get someone to help them out. So they got a defensive corner from Illinois, Devon Witherspoon. He was the defensive back of the year winner, and a lot of people compared him to Jair Alexander, who is already in the league. Then the 6th pick was another surprise, as the Arizona Cardinals, they did that trade with Houston, but then they did do another trade to trade up. So they got that pick from the Los Angeles Rams through the Detroit Lions. So they decided to trade up to get offensive tackle, another fellow Buck of mine, Ohio State, Paris Johnson Jr. So, we love that. We got to represent the Buckeyes here. So Paris getting drafted does make him the first Buckeye offensive lineman to go in the 1st round since 2018. He did start all 26 games for Ohio State over the last 2 seasons, and he did play right guard, though, in 2020 before he moved to left tackle this past season. He also is the highest drafted offensive lineman since Orlando Pace went 1st overall in 1997. Then moving on to the 7th pick was the Las Vegas Raiders, and they chose a defensive lineman from Texas Tech, Tyree Wilson. Then the 8th pick was a running back that was talked, a lot about during the college football season. He was from Texas, and he's going to the Atlanta Falcons. Running back Bijan Robinson. A funny story, his first ever team that he played for when he was a kid was also named the Falcons. Then the 9th pick was the Philadelphia Eagles. They got that from Carolina through the Chicago Bears, and they used their pick to select defensive tackle from Georgia, Jalen Carter. And then the 10th pick was the Chicago Bears, and they did pick offensive tackle from Tennessee, Darnell Wright. And then some other picks around the league where, some people did have an eye on certain players. Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia, he was selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver from Ohio State, was selected 20th by the Seattle Seahawks. And then Zay Flowers was another wide receiver who didn't go to a big school, but he played very well. He went to Boston College. He was selected at the 22nd pick by the Baltimore Ravens, and looks like his QB will be Lamar Jackson. And then a lot of people talked about the QB from Kentucky, Will Levi. So he did go in the 2nd round at the 33rd pick by the Tennessee Titans. Then keep in mind that the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, did get a contract extension recently, but that contract is up March 2024. So as of right now, if he doesn't sign a contract extension, this draft that just passed could be the last draft that Roger Goodell would have done. So just keep an eye on that as the season starts and during this upcoming season. For some other news that happened on draft day, the Eagles are the first team in common draft era, which is since 1967, to select 5 defensive players from the same school over a 2-year span, which is the Georgia Bulldogs. So on draft day, the Eagles did trade for Detroit Lions running back DeAndre Swift, who is a University of Georgia alum. So they did it again with someone from the same school, but this time via a trade. So Swift did rank 3rd among running backs with 5.5 yards per rush last season, and now he gets to run behind the Eagles' offensive line, and they rank 2nd in run block win rate last season at 75%, and they will also have 4 of their 5 starters returning on the offensive line. In the trade, the Lions will receive a 7th round pick that they used in the draft this year. And then in 2025, they will also get a 4th rounder. If you guys missed the show last week or haven't heard, Lamar Jackson did re-sign with the Baltimore Ravens. So he did sign a 5-year deal that is worth $260 million. $185 million of it is being guaranteed. So he is going to be making $52 million a year, which now makes him the NFL's highest paid player ever, just over Jalen Hurts, who recently just signed his contract extension as well. So Hurts' deal was a 5-year deal worth $255 million and almost $180 million of it guaranteed. So just a little bit less than Lamar's, but they both are going to be making $52 million this upcoming season. I think both of these deals were well-deserved for both these players. Last season, Jalen Hurts did lead Philly to the Super Bowl, and Lamar Jackson has played very well the past few seasons, and he got an MVP award despite the few injuries that he has had. So Lamar did win his MVP award in 2019, and he was the 2nd player ever to win the award unanimously. And that year, he led Baltimore to a league best record of 14-2, and it was the first time they went to the postseason in a couple of years. In 2019, he had 265 passes with 3,127 passing yards, with 36 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions on the season. He also added 1,206 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. He had all 50 votes on the nationwide media panel to pick him as MVP during that year. He also set an NFL single-season rushing record for quarterbacks, and he put more yards on the ground than others in the 16-game season. When he was drafted in 2018, though, he did go all the way to the 32nd pick, which was the last pick of the first round, and now he's the highest paid player ever. So there were 4 other QBs that did go ahead of him in 2018 in the draft. Those QBs are Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Rosen. And to mention, Lamar did get his contract without an agent. He did negotiate himself along with his mom because he said he wanted to keep it in the family, and then he also had help from the Players Association. Now, to look at some of those off-season dates, as off-season workouts have already begun in the NFL, but just to keep some dates in mind, the draft is over now, so they can now do their draft and mini camp with rookies. That will start in a few days, and then they could start their off-season workout development program with the rookies on May 15th. And then the next week in May, around the 22nd, is when the OTAs will begin. And then the first week of June, those will end. And then the second week of June is when all teams will be having their mandatory mini camp around June 6th to the 8th, or some days between the 12th and the 15th. Also, today, May 1st, was the deadline for clubs to send their tender to their unsigned, unrestricted free agents. And May 2nd is the deadline for clubs to exercise their 5th-year option on players that were selected in the first round of the 2020 draft. And then looking ahead, the Hall of Fame game that will be in Canton, Ohio this year will be August 3rd through the 6th. And then the NFL season will begin on September 7th. So that's all I have for the NFL right now and the draft, but we're going to definitely talk, more next week as camps will be starting and some players will be getting cut. Also, there's a lot of free agents that still should be signed to some teams as camp and the season starts. But now we're going to move over to the NBA as it's playoff time. And these playoffs have been so good. If you guys haven't tuned in, you guys need to tune in now because they're in the second round and the games are only going to get better. So to start off with the first series in the round one, the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks series. Last week I spoke how, they did suffer some injuries. The Heat lost Victor Oladipo and Tyler Hero. But that didn't stop them as they were able to beat Milwaukee in the series 4-1. And Giannis did experience some injuries during the series as well. He did play, but they just weren't able to come out on top. Looking at their Game 5 win, the Heat did win in overtime, 128-126. It was a really good game, and I thought Milwaukee was going to be able to hold on to force the game to Game 6, but that didn't happen. But looking at, their win, they did win the other game 119-114 to take the lead of the series 3-1. And there were some historic moments in that game as the Bucks were put on the brink of elimination. In that game, Jimmy Butler did drop 56 points for a team playoff record in a game where they did have to come all the way back to win. And then on the other side, the Bucks' Brook Lopez had 36 points along with 12 rebounds. For Jimmy, though, he did have the 56 points with 9 rebounds and 2 assists. And in that game, Giannis had 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 13 assists. With that game, Jimmy did join elite company as he's now one of the most points in an NBA game in postseason history. To look back at the most points, in 1986, Michael Jordan had 63. In 1962, Elgin Baylor had 61. In 2020, Donovan Mitchell had 57, and then Jimmy Butler had his 56 points. To tie him was Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, and Wilt Chamberlain, all with 56 points. And then in Game 5 to get the win to go to round 2, Jimmy Butler had another big game where he had 42 points along with 8 rebounds and 4 assists. So playoff Jimmy striked again. His 42 points did tie Dwayne Wade for the most in a series-clinching win in Miami Heat history. It was Butler's 8th 40-point postseason game with the Heat, which passes Dwayne Wade for the most in franchise history. In 2005, Dwayne Wade had 42 points against the Wizards. In 2012, he had 41 points against the Pacers. And then in 1997, Tim Hardaway had 38 points against the Knicks for the most points in a series-clinching win in the Heat franchise. Looking at some other series in the first round, the Denver Nuggets did beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 4-1, and then the Phoenix Suns won their series against the Clippers 4-1. But for some news on the Clippers, we all know, the whole first round, they unfortunately did not have Paul George as he was still rehabbing his knee injury. But their games, they did also not have Kawhi Leonard as he wasn't able to play the last 3 games in the series. And the Clippers organization did announce after they lost that Kawhi Leonard has been diagnosed with a torn meniscus in his right knee. Like I said, he wasn't able to play the final 3 games, but in the first 2 games, he did average 35 points. Right now, there's no news on how severe his meniscus injury is, but the Clippers did say they are continuing to explore his treatment. They aren't certain yet if he's going to need surgery or if they'll do another type of a rehab option. Looking at the New Orleans Pelicans really quickly, their guard CJ McCollum did undergo a procedure to repair his torn UCL in his thumb. But they also did say he won't need surgery on his shoulder. He had surgery on his right thumb, and they did say for his torn labrum that he won't need surgery. Instead, he will just do a off-season rehab program that will focus on shoulder stability and strengthening. They also said he's expected to make a full recovery from both of his injuries prior to the start of training camp. Then looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks, the Knicks were able to win their series 4-1 as they won Game 5 in Cleveland. They were able to beat Cleveland 106-95. And then the Boston Celtics, they won in Game 6 by 8 points over the Atlanta Hawks to advance to round 2. And then a surprising win People really didn't know if the Lakers would get to playoffs, if they would even get in the play-in or even win the play-in. But the Lakers were able to take on and beat the second seed in the West, the Memphis Grizzlies. Lakers did win that series 4-2. Memphis did play well all season long, and they're a young team, so they're definitely going to be back next year. In Game 6, the Kings were able to beat the Warriors and Golden State to tie the series 3-3. But looking at their Game 4, it was the NBA's most watched first-round playoff game in 21 years, as Game 4 did have 10.4 million viewers. I said the past couple of shows how that was my favorite series so far in playoffs. Then looking at those round 2 matchups, the first series is the Denver Nuggets. They're playing the Phoenix Suns. As of right now, the Denver Nuggets do lead that series 1-0. Then the Miami Heat are playing the New York Knicks. And the Heat did win Game 1 by 7 points to take their lead in the series 1-0. Then for some other matchups in the semifinals, a big matchup in the East is going to be the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. And then the last series that everyone's already talking about, which is sort of a rematch for some players, is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers against the Golden State Warriors. To look at some teams, though, that will be in the semifinals, starting with Philly. They did say that Joel Embiid may wear a brace in the second round on his knee because he does have a sprained LCL. So that is something to keep an eye on. They also did say that they gave him a PRP injection to help with his recovery. So right now it is doubtful that he won't be able to play in Game 1 to open up their series against Boston. For some other stats, the Golden State Warriors' 19-point loss in Game 6 versus Sacramento was their largest home loss with a chance to clinch a playoff series in franchise history. But then in Game 7, Steph Curry did drop 50 points, which set an NBA record. It was the NBA record for most points in a Game 7, and they got the win 120-100. And the Kings' first playoff run since 2006 was lost, and they set up their series against the Lakers. Steph did pass that record, though. He passed Kevin Durant, and KD did put out a tweet congratulating Steph. But Kevin Durant did just become the third player to sign a lifetime deal with Nike in the past week, and the only other players to get a lifetime deal so far is Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Durant did first sign with Nike in 2017 when he was a rookie on the Seattle Supersonics, and then in the years so far, it's led to 15 shoe releases, and he does have his 16th on the way. The partnership does support his grassroots basketball program, and they collaborate with communities across the globe to fix up courts. So his lifetime partnership will continue that, and it will also continue with footwear and apparel. Durant did say when he first signed with Nike, he couldn't have dreamed how far they'd go in their partnership. He said, "We've done amazing work creatively. We've traveled around the world together and built a business. I didn't think this would last forever. I'm excited for the future and to be honored in rare company with this deal." Then we're going to look at former NBA player Joakim Noah right now, as he's launching his own basketball league in Chicago. He is launching his basketball league that will also include 28 violence prevention groups in an interview that he told Shams. So it's going to be called the One City Basketball League, and it is a basketball program for young men that are aged 16 to 25 years old living in the west and south side of Chicago. The league members are doing collaborations with 28 existing violence prevention groups, and the league also provides financial incentives for players, off-court programs, family services through the Ladies of the Art program, and paid job opportunities for managers, coaches, and table officials. The League One City will start this month. Going back to some other series, the playoffs, Minnesota Timberwolves, they lost in the first round to the Denver Nuggets. They have had 18 losses this season by 10 or more. Then Sacramento Kings' De'Aaron Fox did tie for the second most points in an NBA playoff history debut. He did have 192 points in the playoff series against the Warriors, which is the second most in history behind LeBron James in 2006 when he scored 214 points. In De'Aaron's debut game, he did have 38 points along with 5 assists and 1 rebound. The only person that he is behind is Luka Doncic when he had 41 points. And then along with Fox's teammate Malik Monk, he was 16 for 16 on free throws, which is the second most in a playoff debut for a player. And then the Miami Heat beating out the Bucks in round 1 is the 6th time that an 8th seed has beat a 1st seed in the playoffs. Also, history is made again for the first time ever in the NBA of the second round of the playoffs because they have one of every seed 1 through 8. So right now, Denver was the 1st seed, Boston was 2nd, Philadelphia is the 3rd, the Phoenix Suns are 4th seed, the Knicks are at 5, Golden State is the 6th seed, and then the last 2 teams at 7 and 8 are the Lakers and the Heat. Looking at the Stanley Cup, the curse does continue as the last 10 teams to finish the National Hockey regular season with the most points did not win the Stanley Cup. And there were also some other teams that did that in other leagues. The 2001 Mariners, the 2007 New England Patriots, the 2016 Warriors when they had the most wins, but they lost in the finals against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then the Bruins just did it. They had the most points and wins in a hockey season, but they did lose to the Panthers in 7 games. And the Panthers did have the fewest points of any postseason team. The Bruins finished their season 65-12-5 with 135 points, and it was the greatest regular season in hockey history. The Panthers did stun the Bruins in overtime of Game 7 when they won 4-3 to take the championship. Also, for the most points per game in a 20th season in the NBA for a player right now is LeBron James, as he's averaging 28.9 points in his 20th season. Falling behind him in their 20th season, averaging 17.6 points, was Kobe Bryant. Then behind him with 12 points was Dirk Nowitzki. And then averaging 10.1 points in his 20th season was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And then in his 20th season as well, Vince Carter averaged 5.4 points per game. So LeBron is definitely in company with some great players on that list. But as you could tell, he's averaging 28.9 points in his 20th season, which is pretty much the same exact stat line from when LeBron was a rookie in Cleveland. And in his 20th season, he's definitely, out the water and above everybody with what he is averaging right now. Also, the last time that a Western Conference team was able to eliminate the Warriors, we know the Warriors have been a huge team in the West, especially the past few years. The only and the last Western Conference team that was able to beat them was in 2014 when Chris Paul and Blake Griffin led the Los Angeles Clippers to beat them. Also in that time in 2014, to give you some perspective, Steve Kerr, who's now Golden State's head coach, he was not their coach at the time. He was still a color analyst. At that time in 2014, Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic hadn't even been drafted yet. And looking at the football side, Patrick Mahomes didn't even play a college football game yet. And also one of the best football players in the league right now, Aaron Donald, he didn't even make his NFL debut at the time. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more of these NBA playoffs. This is Ball Talk. Don't go anywhere.
I got that stick on, I know. Lost a couple homies to the okay, I said that. Looking on me like they better go put that bed back. Like, no, it ain't no low fish, still can catch me with that bread at. 100,000 cool, but that ain't really with my head at. I need 3, I need 4, I think I need a whole lot. New generation files, we still be passing around them old. We got kicked up out that condo, we was smoking out the whole spot. I'm tryna duck my past, I keep on calling up my old thoughts. Yeah. I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crew with me. Wishing for the best, that's the hope in me. I be floating good, I ain't even bring a boat with me. They say I'm a star, oh I can they see the goat in me. Motivate my people, I motivate my section, yeah. I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crib.
They made me, little city baby, got a mouth full of goals with the dukes like Daisy. If I grew up on that trick, I don't really care for J's. Won't let Nat and play we scrap like the Navy. My niggas gon' let me hurt, I feel like Jalen. To get my niggas back, it ain't nothing I won't trade. And to let me in the door, you know I had to sneak my way in. And I brought the bros with me like the way. Like 2-3 drinks to start my day, but ain't no telling how my day. I like girls, tell her pull up with a gay friend. Good weed and some lit, baby, welcome to my playpen. Grew up on that Jeezy, that's that thug motivation.
I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crib.
Okay, I ain't had no motivation, cause the ones that supposed to motivate was really hating. It's changed, got the big homie looking at the baby. Put it in the face and clean them up, don't need no maybes. Hard night life when my brother pop a chick. Just when he started smoking, we was rolling switches. Real city baby, stepping like the major. Front line, I tell her what up on the case. Really tryna motivate, really good in my hood, I'm by the stove today. Really wanna float, I'm on a boat today. Good eyesight, I got the scope today.
I can't fight no show. I'm gon' jump up in a foreign, but let Jesus take the wheel. Real day, County baby floating good for the crib.
Welcome back to Ball Talk with Brandy. Before the show ends, we're taking a look at that Knicks and Heat series as there's a few injuries and it's all of their sore ankles. Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and Jimmy Butler all have ankle injuries right now that aren't too serious. Right now, they're all listed as questionable, but they all are rehabbing. So hopefully they will be able to go in game one and be good for the series. But that's all the sports talk I have for you guys. You guys can keep up on my Instagram at Ball Talk with Brandy or Brandy Marie X. And shout out to everyone that's listening on Trill Vision every week. Make sure you guys tune in to the NBA playoffs this week. If you guys want to watch some of those games, you can tune in on TNT, ESPN, and ABC this week to watch the games. Make sure you guys tune in next week and every Monday to see what special guests will be coming. Next up on WNRV, you guys have conversations with DJ Shawnee Sean and the Bourbon Brothers. This is Ball Talk with Brandy. I'll talk to you guys next week.
From behind the backboard. What a shot.
An incredible shot by LeBron James.
They on the radio, the way they all talk. As long as the show steady on, I can never fall off. They tune in too heavy though, I can never call off. Take the shot on every go, sorry I'm a ball hog. This that ball talk.